Welcome to the Aaron Harber Show, Your Decision 2018. This is part 2 of our special two-part series on Amendment 73, New Funding for Public Schools, kindergarten through 12th grade, and actually pre-kindergarten too. So I want to welcome the panel. Martha Olson, thank you for joining me. Kathy Kipp, Michael Fields, and Norma Anderson. So in part 1, well, we covered a fair bit of ground in part 1. And Michael, off camera, you said something that's really interesting. The point I made that show us how we can guarantee the money is going to get into the classroom, and then we'll vote yes. You know, one of the interesting things about a lot of ballot issues, and you can all comment on that, is they're rarely perfect. So voters may end up having, in this case, I think, to decide, are we going to give education an extra $1.6 billion, not knowing exactly how it's going to be spent? And I guess one of the questions is, does any state or school district have a mechanism where they can tell you in advance how money is going to be spent? Martha, your solution was, hey, let local control rule. Let each school district decide, which is certainly how Colorado has always operated. But has anyone ever come up with a way to solve this problem so that we know the money goes into the classroom first?
Well, the legislative body a long time ago did pass where you have to put on a website, how you're spending your money.
And most school districts do that. There's a lot of transparency on the part of school districts today.
That doesn't answer the other question. How are you going to spend the money? And let me do a comparison. As I've watched all elections through the years, the ones that pass are the ones that identify where the money's going. And look at the transportation thing that's on the ballot this time to raise the sales tax. Boy, they tell you where every dime goes. They tell you the projects, everything.
Michael's a big proponent of that measure, by the way. Did you know that?
Which one is it? The one where you use the budget to do it? Yes, I am. I'm just saying. So I guess the question is, let's say this measure.
Identify.
Well, let's say this measure proposal had said all of this money is going into the classroom. Would that have made sense or not?
No. So we have 178 different school districts in Colorado. They range from about 50 kids to over 90,000 kids. We also have 178 districts in our state that made different choices when the Great Recession came along about what to cut. Is it really what you want to do to mandate to local districts what's best for their district from a state level? It's really a local control issue.
But isn't that how you're selling it? You're not going around to people saying,
we're
going to put this in para, we're going to pay more administrators.
The last measure that we had on the ballot that failed big time was basically because it was so prescriptive. Frankly, I knew teachers who didn't vote for that because they said, that's not how I want the money spent. I want to be able to have some say in it at the local level. And that's why we're doing it this way.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, no, and each local school district and each local group of parents and communities is going to be able to help focus how are we going to spend this new money.
Right, but I'm saying I think the perspective of a very significant number of taxpayers, and maybe a majority, is that too much money goes into resources not in the classroom. I think most taxpayers want teachers to be paid more, and that a lot of them are going to say this doesn't guarantee that.
I totally agree with you. I went throughout the state and gathered signatures. I got 4,500 signatures on my own.
She's our top signature gatherer.
And I will tell you, I had conversations.
We have a trophy for you after the show.
We had conversations with people. We turned in over 180,000 signatures. We had conversations with people around the state, and that's what we heard. Well, I want to make sure it goes into teacher pay. It's like, okay, well, talk to your local school board, because that's a need we have. We started our schools last year with about 3,600 teachers short throughout the state.
But that's not, you're not getting their message. Their message isn't, we're going to give you money and we want it to go a certain way. Their message is, show us how, if we give you the money, it's going to go to teachers. And you're not doing that, and maybe there isn't any way to do that.
We have school districts that are around the state that are right now passing resolutions saying, if 73 passes, these are the ways that we want to spend the money. But we also want to engage with our local constituents and say, what's important to you? In my district, the types of things I'm hearing are about pay for our employees, not just our teachers, but all of our school employees. We're also hearing about more mental health supports in our school. There's a lot of things that people want to do, and if we mandate it at the local level, it's just not going to happen.
But that's not in the initiative. all
Well,
they-
no, what they're saying, Norma, what they're saying, what's in the initiative is that each school district
That's right.
gets to
But
decide,
you
which is a
couldn't-
principle you have always supported.
Yes, I have, and I support local control. But when I want to pass a tax, I'm specific.
All right. Well, the other thing no one's mentioned too is that even if you did that, and I would have proposed that all of it go to teachers because
No,
money
no, you could word that a different way, Aaron. You could word it that the
in
teachers
class
receive.
instruction.
Yeah, well, the teachers need to have a wage that is livable within their community, something to that extent.
That's a little vague, but I'm just
No,
saying.
but
I'm just saying. My point
you could
is that
refine that.
assets, resources are fungible, so that as they go up, you could cover some of those other things anyway. But Michael, did you have something you?
No, I just think you look at the track record of how the education system spending that money, and you can look at just this decade. You had students go up 6%, you had teachers go up 8%, you had administration go up 34%. And until that problem is fixed, there might be people that agree to raise taxes on a local level for their district because they really like it. But a statewide tax hike, I think, is really going to run into problems like it did in 2013, like it did in 2011. These initiatives got crushed because they didn't feel like this system is using the money most effectively. And so until they make that case, I don't see how this passes.
I agree with that.
I think you have to take a really hard look. I mean, Kathy and I have been in schools for a long, long time, and I've worked at a lot of different levels in schools over my career. And how you define administration really matters in these kind of issues. But in addition to having a really good teacher in every classroom, you need to have counselors and mental health support. You need to have lab assistants if you're going to have first-class science classes for your high school kids. You're going to need to have paraprofessionals that are going to help you with kids that have special needs. You need all of these kind of people that help make up a good quality school. You need a principal who can spend time mentoring teachers and overseeing instruction.
You are 100% right. You are
And
100% right.
that's what this bill will allow us to do.
You're 100% right. But you also don't need 4 assistant principals and 3 vice principals or whatever the case may be. And you go into any school today, and again, compared to 20, 30, 40 years ago, and I would argue, and we've all 5 of us have seen it firsthand, you have way too many people in those kinds of positions. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more from our panel.
For information on how to help promote civil and mutually respectful discourse and support expansion of the distribution of our programs, please email info@harbertv.com.
I'm Aaron Harber, host of The Aaron Harber Show. You can follow the show on Twitter for instant notification of new episodes, live event invitations, outtakes, and behind-the-scene photos. And tweet us your topic and guest suggestions today. I'm Aaron Harber, host of The Aaron Harber Show. I very much would like to hear from you about the program, so please send me an email with your thoughts. You can suggest what topics I should cover, what guests I should invite to be on the show, or even what specific questions you would like me to ask. This is your program, so send your suggestions to aaron@harbertv.com. I promise to personally read every one, so email me today. And most of all, thanks for watching.
Join me and watch The Aaron Harber Show.
Watch The Aaron Harber Show.
Watch The Aaron Harber Show.
Watch the Aaron Harper Show.
Watch The Aaron Harber Show.
I'm Reverend Jesse Jackson. Watch The Aaron Harber Show and Keep Hope Alive.
I'm Aaron Harber, host of The Aaron Harber Show. Find us on Facebook to get all the latest updates, see behind-the-scene photos, and make comments and ask me questions. You can see episodes before their TV broadcast, so like the show today.
The Aaron Harber Show may be viewed 24/7 at no charge from any location in the world at harbertv.com.
Welcome back to the show. Remember, this is part 2 of our special 2-part series on Amendment 73, a way to provide new funding for public school education, kindergarten through 12th grade. Okay, so I know I interrupted all of you. Norma, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Yes, I was going to say NCSL did a study on education and what should be done.
National Conference of State Legislatures.
Right. And they looked at the whole world. And Quebec has an excellent, with a high, immigrant and low-income population, and do excellent work. And what they do is just what you've been referring to, not so many principals and administrators. They pay their teachers at a high wage and let the teachers control that classroom, but the teachers have to stand to a certain standard.
Okay, but they also
And it works.
they don't necessarily have the same federal and state mandates that our schools have. And that may be an
Well,
area.
a lot of them do. I'm sorry, a lot of them do.
Well, one of the things I want to address too is funding. That's a really on a per capita basis. I know on your website it says we're behind Alabama and Mississippi. We actually are not behind Alabama and Mississippi. If you look at the latest numbers, we're not way ahead, but they are behind us. But Colorado is in the lower rate. We spend under $10,000 per student. So one of the things that's often misleading is people talk about what the state government provides. But in Colorado, spending per student, your spending per student is state dollars plus local dollars. And that's the really accurate measure. And so one of the really interesting issues that strikes me is, okay, so it seems to me we're actually doing more with less. So is that a bad thing?
You know, Colorado's does really well for bang for the buck in terms of how our kids
Exactly.
do for the amount of money spent. But if we spend more than $2,000 less per child here than the average across the country.
Yes.
And that makes a difference. And where it really starts to make a difference.
Well, let's stop
is
with that. Hold on, no. Well, let's hit that statistic. You know, that can be misleading because costs differ across the country. So if New York is spending $20,000 or more than $20,000 per student, which it does, look at the cost of living in New York. I mean, you can't pay a teacher $35,000 and expect him or her to even exist in the state of New York. So
I want teachers to be able to live in the communities in which they work. I have teachers commuting, 40 miles or more to come into the Poudre School District in order to live or to be anywhere near where they are working.
No
I have
question.
teachers who have second jobs. I go to my local grocery store, and every time I'm there, I see a teacher with a second job who can't afford not to have a second job.
we're
It's
all
not
in
okay.
agreement. We're all in agreement with that. And so I think what we're saying is, how do we make sure that money goes to them? You could not pay me enough to teach. I have substitute taught when my daughter was very young at a school, just on occasion, and I marvel. I mean, I could last a day or two. I think if I were there a week, I'd be charged with murder. And so, people who do this, I admire so much, and I want the money to go to them. And I think that's, as you can tell, that's my concern. And maybe I vote for this, knowing that, okay, it's not perfect. All the money isn't going to go to teachers, but I know a lot of it will, or I hope a lot of it will, and that's worth it. So I mean, I may make that decision. Michael is already crying because of that statement. But go ahead.
I think the big thing with this too is looking at it from a Colorado voter's perspective. They look and say, you know what, we have a certain amount of taxes that we pay the state. And then we hear, from legislators, from other people, that certain things are priority. Roads are a priority. Teacher pay is a priority. And I think the question is, what are we spending the rest of that money on? And is it more important than the things that we say are priorities? And so I think that's another thing in people's head and saying we have a $30 billion budget. Not all of that is general fund money, obviously.
Right, little over half.
But if there's more money that wants to go to education, legislators can discuss that. They can talk about it, and they can put more money into education, just like they did last year. But I think the key is saying, you know what, if that is a priority, as a family, we go home and say we want to stay in our house, so we pay our mortgage first, and we make sure that we take care of other things after that. If teacher pay, if education, if roads are a priority, put that at the front of the line, and then build the rest of the budget around that.
Well, education accounts for roughly $9 billion out of that $30 billion budget. I assume it's the single largest line item.
It is.
Okay, so I mean, we're spending.
Healthcare is catching it, but it's.
Pardon?
I said healthcare is catching it.
Healthcare and all the mandates is catching
That's
up.
another show. That's another show. So, I mean, it's a lot of money, but clearly, I think we all agree there are many schools who need help in terms of their buildings, the safety of where our kids go.
Buildings are done at the local level with a mill levy.
Right, but some, as I pointed out previously, some school districts are in counties where property values are very low, and the mill levy you can't do it that way. They need help from the state. They need help from the rest of us who can afford to help them. And certainly,
But this will do nothing about buildings.
Well, again, all assets are fungible. If you give a school district money for pay increases, that means you may not be using money that you get, new money you get from the state for pay increases, and you can use that money for deferred maintenance. That I'm getting.
Maintenance is one thing, but building is something else. I mean, there is a difference. That I do know.
And that's one of the reasons why we want local districts to be able to decide. If you have a boiler go out in a building, you want to be able to replace that boiler. If you didn't have the bonds that were paying for that your local voters were unable to raise that money, you could use this money potentially for that. You could use this money for the needs in your district, whatever is needed most. And every district just has different needs.
And there's also a fund in the education department for emergencies, particularly on the small districts. But the other thing is, this is huge, but it's not the right answer.
What's the right answer?
There are a lot of things you could do.
Tell me.
One is the fund, the land fund. Legislators can't spend it on anything but education. Other states, like Utah, New Mexico, have put money into their land fund. We could take that 1/3 of 1% income tax, put it in the land fund and build that, and the interest then coming in helps.
It would help, but it's nowhere near this amount of money.
Oh, yes, it would be.
How much would it be?
Utah has like $15 billion in their land fund. Now, you think about the interest on that.
I'd like to see us on a path to where we could get $15 billion. I don't think that's going to happen.
It takes a long time. It doesn't happen overnight. No, it wouldn't be immediate. One of the other things you could do is take special districts out of Tabor.
And?
That gets away from the conflict of Gallagher.
So, well, one of the things that we definitely need to do is take a look at, Amendment 23, Gallagher and Tabor, and clearly that interaction has created huge challenges.
Too much in the Constitution. We're destroying our Constitution.
Okay, well, that goes to your and my, one of our favorite topics, where you have a U.S. Constitution this thick, and you have a...
Can I show you?
No, you have a Colorado Constitution that's like 100 times longer. Yeah. But go ahead, please, Martha.
Here's the thing. Our kids are suffering they're not suffering in our schools, but we're denying them the kind of quality education that they should get, that kids across the country are getting, because money does make a difference, however the district decides to spend it. And the problem is that we can't wait for the perfect solution, because who knows when that's going to come. And in the meantime, Johnny's going to have graduated high school by the time,
I just
another solution comes along.
I just had 2 grandchildren graduate.
And so we need to do something to make sure that they've got quality education.
Well, final comment, and then we have to take a break.
2 grandchildren that just graduated.
From?
Wheat Ridge High School in Jefferson County. And one's in his 3rd year. I mean, they both graduated in the top of their class. And I was amazed when I went to graduation, and all the kids that stood up that had over a 3.5. Amazing.
That's good.
So don't tell me they're not getting educations.
All right, well, we can talk about great inflation on another show. We're going to be right back after this break to wrap up.
For information on how to help promote civil and mutually respectful discourse and support expansion of the distribution of our programs, please email info@harbertv.com.
I'm Aaron Harber, host of The Aaron Harber Show. You can follow the show on Twitter for instant notification of new episodes, live event invitations, outtakes, and behind-the-scene photos. And tweet us your topic and guest suggestions today.
The Rex Howell Broadcaster of the Year Award recognizes an individual who, through leadership, skill, and dedication, is advancing the broadcast industry in our state and our nation. Tonight, we honor Aaron Harber. Aaron has worked extensively in the media as a host, producer, political and economic commentator, and columnist. Today, the Aaron Harber Show is the focus of his media involvement. Aaron, it is a privilege to present you with the Rex Howell Broadcaster of the Year Award. Congratulations.
just make journalism great again. I'm Aaron Harber, host of the Aaron Harber Show. I very much would like to hear from you about the program, so please send me an email with your thoughts. You can suggest what topics I should cover, what guests I should invite to be on the show, or even what specific questions you would like me to ask. This is your program, so send your suggestions to aaron@harbortv.com. I promise to personally read every one, so email me today. And most of all, thanks for watching. I'm Aaron Harber, host of the Aaron Harber Show. Find us on Facebook to get all the latest updates, see behind-the-scenes photos, and make comments and ask me questions. You can see episodes before their TV broadcast, so like the show today.
Join me and watch the Aaron Harber Show.
Watch the Aaron Harber Show.
Watch the Aaron Harber Show.
Watch the Aaron Harper Show.
Watch the Aaron Harber Show.
I'm Reverend Jesse Jackson. Watch the Aaron Harber Show and Keep Hope Alive.
The Aaron Harber Show may be viewed 24/7 at no charge from any location in the world at harbortv.com.
Welcome back to the show. This is our final segment in our two-part series on Amendment 73, new funding for public schools. So make sure you watch part one. Okay, so I know we don't have a lot of time left, but Martha, let's start off with what have we not talked about that's really important in terms of people knowing the benefits of Amendment 73?
Well, I think the really important thing is that Amendment 73 attempts to make up for the massive disinvestment we've had in our public schools over the last 10 years. We've taken over $7 billion out of our schools. Amendment 73 is attempting to make that up incrementally so that our kids in school today can have an education that prepares them for the workforce of today and tomorrow, and so that our employers across the state will have well-trained, educated kids.
Okay, and how about other economic benefits? Are there other
Well,
economic
I think
benefits?
Martha just mentioned it. We have well-educated kids who can enter our workforce. We have a place where people want to live. If we have a world-class education system in Colorado, we have a place where people want to move, where people want to raise their families. It does nothing but help the economy. There's also all kinds of other benefits to having world-class, excellent education in our schools throughout the state. So I just don't want to lose that and say, oh, it's just tax and spend. No, it is investing in our students and in our economy.
Particularly in our rural communities.
All right, Michael?
I think people would be more confident in that if they knew that this money would specifically raise achievement for students and give us a better education system here in Colorado. I think there's no guarantee that that's going to happen, and that's one of the big issues. Back when Amendment 66 was up, University of Colorado lead School of Business did a study on the economic impact and basically said over a 5-year period it would cost $250 million in economic activity and 6,500 jobs. I'm guessing, I haven't seen a study on this.
It would generate that?
No, it would be a drag on the economy that way. And looking at that, I think this would be, you're going to see similar numbers as studies come out about this proposal. But I agree, I want a world-class education for our students here as a former teacher, as somebody who, my youngest just started in a Jeffco school, kindergarten, and I think, I want to invest in positive things, teachers to get paid well, good teachers to get paid even more. The problem is this is really a blank check without the kind of accountability that we need.
So, a couple things. One is the blank check. It seems like there may not be any other choice, that if you believe in local control, you have to have faith in your school board, and if you don't, it's up to you to put people together or to run for school. I mean, my gosh, a lot of school boards, nobody runs for them, right, Norma? So I mean, you can really get involved at a high level. On the economic study that Leeds did, based on what you said, I don't buy that, and let me tell you why I don't buy that. Because it may be a drag temporarily because you're investing. But what's the economic value of having a kid who's better prepared for college? What's the economic value of a kid who can progress to a better job? So,
and if that was the case, I agree with you. Yeah. But there's no guarantee that spending $1.6 billion and impacting the economy in some way is definitely going to give us those outcomes. And I think if people saw us prioritize the state budget, if they saw us, spend more money giving it to teacher pay, I think you would have a different kind of argument.
So how could you guarantee that a tax increase would go, let's say, if we're in agreement that teachers need to be paid more, which That's certainly my perspective. And we need more teachers and better teachers, and we can get into the quality of teaching and instruction and all that separately. But how do you is there any mechanism to guarantee that?
I think there's several mechanisms that could impact it. One is I'm not going to vote for a tax increase on the local level if my district is not doing a good job with this one. I think legislators also can look at this and say, you know what, we have a say over what happens in the budget, and if districts aren't doing this, if teacher pay continues to decline, why are we going to invest $150 million more dollars that are going to go to administrative costs, et cetera? I think that is a way to do it. And I think as voters, we can say once we see changes that show that teachers are getting paid more, that money's going into classrooms, then they might be more likely to approve something like this or something on the local.
So has teacher pay in terms of real dollars, hasn't it gone down?
It's gone way down.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're
In some
in terms
areas.
of no, statewide.
Yeah.
Statewide.
But if
so in
you
terms
look
of
at total state, but you could always say 10% increase for teachers has to come out of this money. I mean, at least you know where some of the money is going.
It'd be a great idea if the school boards got together next week and said, we are going to commit X percent of this to teacher pay. That might convince voters to go for it.
Well,
And you said some are considering ideas like that, but get them all together and do
I'm
that.
just saying, when 85% of an average school district budget goes to salaries, we can't increase pay without having more money. We do as much as we can every year.
Right, but there's a distinction between 85% going to salaries and 85% going to teachers' salaries. So you
Right, but there's a lot of, okay,
I think,
but
and
you-
we've had that discussion
Right.
before,
And
but
I have paras who are making, I had a para write me the other week, making $13 an hour as a special education teacher. It's a tough way to make a living, okay?
you can't.
Right.
That's $26,000 a year
Yeah.
and change. You can't. But go ahead, Mark.
well, I was going to take you up on why not get all the school boards together. School districts all over the state are figuring out how they're going to spend the money. And if you go to our website, yes on 73.
There are too many of these
There's too
amendments.
many. We were Initiative 93. Now we're Amendment 73.
And by the way,
Yes
that
on
is a
73.
crazy system, but we'll talk to the Secretary of State candidates about that.
Yes, on 73, you can see how much each district is going to get, and you can see the districts that are already putting up their plans and their resolutions for how this money is going to be spent. So it's really local control at its best that's going on
Right,
here.
but this is a statewide
So,
vote. No one's going to
it's a-
look at all 178 districts. You need to come out with an announcement, a plan, and a commitment,
You
I
need to
think,
look
if
at
you
your own
want to win.
district.
It's 178 local campaigns.
All right, we have 30 seconds left. One quick sentence. Why should I vote for Amendment 73?
This is the best thing we can do for kids. It's for
Okay.
kids.
And why should I not vote for 73? Norma, do you want to do it, or Michael?
Go ahead, Norma.
It impacts the economy. It's too much money, and we don't know where it's going. And it also is, again, changing the Constitution. Pardon me.
All right, well, you vote for against anything that changes the
That's right.
Constitution.
I always say vote for the letters and against the numbers.
I know, but you're going to, Mark.
I was just going to say, our Constitution is such that we'll never have any new money for schools unless we do amend the Constitution. So we're doing exactly what Tabor requires us to do.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's right. I mean, the great thing about Tabor is it allows you to go to the voters and ask for more money. That's what Amendment 73 does. Obviously, it's not a perfect proposal, so it'll be interesting to see what taxpayers do. I'd like to thank each of you. You all were great. Martha, Kathy, Michael, Norma, thank you so much for joining me. Remember, watch part 1 of this special 2-part series. I'm Aaron Harber. Thanks for watching.
Please contact us. We want to hear from you. And thanks for watching.